Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Just a heads up, guys. One, I'm hoping to do a good length stream today. Notice I said hoping, but real life has been kicking me in the butt for the weekend, and I'm going to do as much as I can, but there's limitations, shall we say. Okay, second thing, I planned on doing that 3 hours of the Supreme Court hearing at this weekend, of going through that and pulling out stuff for today's stream. And obviously that did not happen. Again, real life kicked me in the butt all weekend long. And so for various things, that did not happen either. So I'm going to do what I can do today. Hopefully Ramen shows up to help. And plus, today's also infusion day, so I got to put up with that crap. I'm on my second syringe, started that about 8 minutes ago, so I got about another 20 minutes or so before I got to change out to my next syringe. But this first story I'm going to cover today is because all right, what is going on here? Close that. Okay, this first story I am going to cover today, I'm covering it because I covered it when CNN first broadcast it, put it out there, and it turns out they were wrong, which means what I said was wrong. So I want to correct the records on this. And I was rather harsh to the gentleman, but when you see why I was rather harsh on him, I think you'll understand. And that's why I want to correct the record on my own show. A Florida judge on Friday sided with U.S. Navy veteran Zachary Young, who is suing CNN for defamation on several critical issues as the high-stakes trial is set to begin next month. Young alleges, and there is no alleged here, but because CNN, in my opinion, definitely did it. Young alleges that CNN smeared him by implying he illegally profited via a black market when helping people flee Afghanistan during the Biden administration's military withdrawal from the country in 2021. Young believes, and it's absolutely true, that CNN destroyed his reputation and business during a segment that year on Jake Tapper's program, The Lead, which was shared on social media and also repackaged for CNN's website. Judge William Henry denied CNN's motion for a summary judgment, allowing Young to proceed with his claim for punitive damages, declaring the court found he did not take money from Afghans. What this was is CNN claimed that he fraudulently generated records and everything else for money to get people out of Afghanistan, saying that people were what they weren't, did things that they didn't do, and that he was being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. Well, it went to trial. He was court-martialed over it because he was active duty at the time, and he was found innocent. He was found not guilty of the charges. But of course, CNN, as they always do, while they played up the original story, they sort of neglected to put the same effort into the follow-up story that, we were wrong. Despite claiming it did 3 weeks of news gathering and spoke to more than a dozen sources, defendants' representatives acknowledged it had no evidence that Young did anything criminal or illegal. Yet, the defendant, CNN, used a black market cryon. This was sufficient evidence upon which a reasonable jury could find with convincing clarity that the defendant acted with actual malice to survive a summary judgment on this issue, Judge Henry ruled in court documents. The defendant, CNN, had no evidence of illegality, and Young said he was not contracting with or taking money from individuals. Despite this, defendant published his name and photograph as the poster child bad actor preying on Afghans. Accordingly, the record evidence could support a conclusion that the defendant, CNN, aired and posted the pieces knowing the gift was false or with reckless disregard as to whether the gift was false or not. CNN's legal team had argued that Young's actions violated the Taliban Sharia law. We don't enforce Sharia law. In fact, there is a law that says we don't enforce Sharia law in the United States. CNN's legal team had argued that Young's actions violated the Taliban Sharia law, but Judge Henry slapped down the motion that he violated the law. Framing these circumstances as a debate between Taliban rulers and the rest of the free world would be akin to saying it was debatable whether or not the Nazi extermination of Jews at Auschwitz was wrong, Judge Henry wrote. Judge Henry also called out CNN's legal team for failing to nail down how Young operated in an unregulated black market. The fundamental problem with the defendant's arguments is that they rely on this own proffered definition of black market, which has been a moving target throughout this litigation, and ignore the potential that black market connotes illegality or criminality. It wasn't a complete shutout for CNN's legal team. Judge Henry agreed that Young's company, Nemex Enterprises, could not be considered for damages. The CNN segment at the center of the suit began with Tapper informing viewers that CNN correspondent Alex Marquette found Afghans trying to get out of the country face a black market full of promises, demands of exorbitant fees, and no guarantee of safety or success. CNN's legal team argued that Young thrust himself into this controversy by reaching out to CNN Katie Bo Lills initially. However, Judge Henry wrote that a brief review of the communication does not demonstrate, at least on its face, that Young was seeking to thrust himself in the media spotlight concerning Afghanistan. Rather, his initial communication was a business call. He'd reached out to see if Lills needed someone to provide evacuation services. One could say Marquette had his narrative that he wanted to portray bad people preying on Afghans. In fact, Marquette's initial pitches for the story between October 26th and 28th in 2021 include the explosive phrases price gouging, extortation of desperate Afghans, shadowy black market, then concluded he wanted to examine to what extent this was extortion or fraud. Then fortuitously, a door opened to obtain information for the piece when Young reached out to Lills. Lils cultivated the relationship about in an underhanded manner by not disclosing the defendant's reporters' motivations or that they were going to use his identity. Once Young stopped cooperating with the investigative reports, Marquette found his fall guy. Yeah, oh, this sounds like Marquette and Lils Marquette just made this whole thing up. And CNN is now going to pay for it. Nonetheless, Marquette had the face of the bad guys put on screen. Defendant, CNN, had no evidence Young did anything illegal, but yet chose the black market Chiron and only highlighted him in the segment. They had information that Young was not working directly with or taking money from individual Afghans, but he could be the bad guy preying on Afghans. And collectively, they put together a narrative that, despite having holes, would paint Young in the worst light, knowing false information, or at least a reckless manner. So, hey, morning, Ramen. So, like I said, I beat up on this guy pretty hard because he was Navy at the time. And I beat up on him real hard over this. And if he's listening, I want to apologize for beating up on you so hard. I'm just, as retired military, I don't like scumbags misusing their position of authority in the military. I saw it happen too many times, and sometimes they got caught and punished, sometimes they got caught and not punished. And it seems like the worse the offense was, the less likely they were going to be punished for committing it. I saw one guy take a 10% discount on an item from a local vendor that he was buying for his own use. This was a vendor that had been selling to his unit for years. He needed something that this vendor sold for his own use. He took a 10% discount on the price tag, and he got in trouble for it because he was taking advantage of his official role for personal gain. And while the military does look harsh on that, another guy turned around and bought $1,000 worth of tires for his car using a government-issued American Express credit card. And he got a verbal warning not to do it again. So, yeah, make that make sense. Make that make sense, people. Hey, Raman, that video you sent me about the anesthesia, yeah, I'm subbed to that guy, so I'd already seen that video. But yeah, that guy is actually was actually a doctor, and he and his wife now do that routine. And yeah, I like his whole crew. I like it. I like all of his skits. He does a great job. Now, granted, you have to understand that all of his skits come from his perspective. And while I'm sure he tries to be 100% accurate with everything. Um, I'm sure that again, when anybody's doing anything, it's like me. I'm doing this from my perspective, and there's always a plenty of a reason for somebody to disagree with me. I just don't happen to think that guy's wrong very often. Hey, Digi, good morning, my friend. Oh, so yeah, but I wanted to cover that story because it was important. I felt that it got covered. That I at least correct my okay. Now this next story, congressional hearings. This was Fallon versus the acting deputy director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe Jr. And the media did its usual hack job for the most part. I only saw one or two articles that actually covered this in perspective in its entirety, the video. So, this video, the hearing was an hour and almost 2 hours long. I'm not playing the whole 2 hours of this. Because I only wanted to cover this one part because the media made such a big deal out of it. And I can understand why they did. Tempers got more than a little hot. Whoops. That. Where is it? There we go. That's the biggest screen. I thought I had one with the bigger screen, but I don't. That's okay.
You and Ranking Member Rowe and the rest of the committee has done, and certainly our staff. Mr. Rowe, would you agree that the protection that...
Okay, I started a little bit too far. So we'll catch the end of this guy's speech.
To run over, and I thank all of you, all my colleagues here and the staff again for the outstanding bipartisan work that you've been able to do.
Thank you, Mr. Ivey. Now we recognize Mr. Fallon from Texas.
Okay, yep, here we go. And let me pause here for just a second because Spanky, of course, would choose this exact moment that he needs to go outside and go potty. And this is something that is very important, as I do not want him messing up my carpeting or my wood floors in the house. Okay. And here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the work that you and Ranking Member Rowe and the rest of the committee has done, and certainly our staff. Mr. Rowe, would you agree that the protection that President Trump was provided on the 13th of July was wholly and tragically negligent? The site plan was abysmal to the point of derelict. And on the 13th of July in Butler, Pennsylvania, the United States Secret Service not only failed President Trump, but Corey Comparatori and the American people in historic fashion.
I would.
Okay, so as we can tell, Fallon, he started off rather combative. He did not have a nice thing there to say. And about the organization that this guy's the acting director of, because if you remember Cheaterly, she was the director, and during the initial hearings, she resigned after her first day. She got so butthurt and her feelings got so hurt that she just wanted, yes, I will admit there were, a lot of people on both sides of the aisle were calling for her resignation. And I said then that they should not be accepting her resignation until after the hearings were completed. Because once she's resigned, it's a lot harder to get her up there for testimony. And she resigned before the second day. There's supposed to be 2 days of hearings, and she resigned. And this guy got called up as he was a second in command, and he's now the acting director. They still have not put anybody in as director.
In the months leading up to July 13th, who was the director of the Secret Service?
Kimberly Cheadle.
Okay. Other than former Director Cheadle, who was the most senior Secret Service agent?
In the agency? That would be me. I was the
Correct.
deputy director.
In a controversial new bill that just passed,
Dang it!
50 states approved.
I just went through this mess.
For U.S. drivers with.
Sorry, guys.
After the July of 24, were you made aware of highly credible intelligence that a serious and grave threat to President Trump's life from an adversarial nation state? There was a very serious threat.
In this open setting, Congressman, I can't discuss what I was or was not aware of.
Well, the former Director Cheadle said she was aware, so I would imagine by extension you were aware. You said in open session that.
I would point to Director Cheadle's.
All right, so you were aware. So we have a unique circumstance here because we had a former president of the United States who is the leading candidate at that time to be the next president of the United States, and he will be now that we know. And he was being threatened by a foreign nefarious nation state because of actions he took while he was president of the United States. Very unique circumstance.
Fallon is not wrong in anything he's saying here. He's coming across aggressively, yes. He's not cutting any slack. He's not giving any mercy. He's not being he's being polite, but that's, the bare requirements to reach the polite level, I would say. But again, he's not lying. He's not over exaggerating. He's not being hyperbolic. And Rowe there's got, he's sitting in the hot seat. He knew that when he accepted this position as acting director, that he'd be sitting in the hot seat.
So, being that you were aware of these unique circumstances, did President Trump, was he provided a security detail akin to what a sitting president would receive?
At that time, he was not.
He was not. Would you agree that if there was a counter-surveillance unit there in Butler on the 13th, he would have been safer?
I think if there was a counter-surveillance unit advance that was on the ground, it could have aided the advance team in identifying the AG.
So he would have been safer. President Trump would have been safer. Yeah, okay. I don't think this would have even occurred, but be that as it may, did the president's detail request a CSU, to your knowledge?
I'm not aware of a request for CSU.
Now, was the threat from the nefarious nation state disseminated to agents in the field and in the protective details?
I gotta say this at this point. I don't know if this guy's wearing a wig, a toupee, or what. But that hair just does not look natural. It just does not look natural. Oh, you can't hear it, Neil? I'm sorry. Well, I haven't gotten to the good part yet, so.
I'm just pausing, Congressman, because I'm trying to walk our tightrope here in an open setting. What I can tell you is that the Secret
How's that, Neil? Can you hear it now? Can everybody hear it now? All right, great.
Secret Service provided assets on that day for a particular.
What I can tell you, sir, is that the folks that are whistleblowing and informing some members of Congress say that they were not aware of this threat. And that's what I'm getting at with being proactive and showing leadership is we know for a fact that there was no CSU in Butler. Was there a full CAT team there?
There was not.
No, a full CAT team, 6 members, and there were 2 there. So you knew of the threat. You didn't disseminate to the field and the protective details. You didn't, President Trump didn't have a protection that was akin to a sitting president. He didn't have the.
Now, they keep going back on this, and I'm going, Trump did not have the protection of a sitting president. He was not a sitting president. Sorry, folks, it's a fact of life. He was not a sitting president. He was a former president. He was a candidate for president. But he was not a sitting president. He should have been given the protection warranted his position as a former president and as a candidate for president. Plus, with whatever upgrades were required because of the threats, the uniqueness of the threats against him directly by Iran and Iraq. Okay? But to say that he deserved all the protection of a sitting president is nonsense. Because he wasn't a sitting president. I said then, I will say again today, that when he was there at Butler, he should have been given, there should have been unmanned aerial surveillance, i.e. drones, flying around the area to give him the protection, especially since they did not have agents on top of that one building because the roof was too steep. Oh my goodness, that roof was too steep. They couldn't put somebody up on top of there. Which, we all know is nonsense. That roof was not too steep. But that's the excuse that Cheadle, whatever her name was, used. That the roof was too steep to put agents up there. But even so, if that roof was too steep to put agents up there, then at that point, they should have had drones flying. Or they should have had agents supervising that area with binoculars and telescopes. They should have had agents on the ground behind that building. There's a lot of things they could have done, should have done, that would have prevented that guy from getting on top of that roof. And I know, we're looking at it from hindsight. Okay? But that hindsight is, these guys are paid to think worst case scenarios. And this hindsight that we're looking at it with is what they should have been looking at it with to start with. They should have been looking worst case scenarios to start with. And they weren't.
CSU, he had only the third of the cat team. So that's that kind of ineptitude and inaction and complacency and the neglect that really, quite frankly, is as telling as it is chilling. And had it not been for a very blessed, fortuitous, and a happenstance of a perfectly timed turn of a head, President Trump would have lost his life that day. Now, this is another thing that concerns me. We report to our constituents, and instead of really after this happened, did you go the next day to Butler, Pennsylvania on the 14th of July?
I did not.
Okay. Did you go that week?
I did not.
Time to crush your doubts and prove that permanent dental implants aren't just strong, but they're also affordable. But
the FBI held that site secure.
Okay. As a second in charge of the Secret Service, would it really be necessary for him to go? That is a question. And I can't say that, yes, it would have been necessary for him to go and lay eyeballs on that system. Somebody in the hierarchy should have. And I can see why they're pressing, why they press that Cheatham didn't go and that he didn't go. I can see why they're pressing them as to why these people did not attend or go out there to see what actually happened, to see the area. But as the question still, we've all worked in these organizations when the senior people go out. Everybody's so used to kissing their butts, and they're so used to having their butts kissed, that more time is spent paying attention to them and making than is actually doing the job. If either one of them had gone out there, what in all reality would they have been able to do? What would they bring forth? Because at that level, they're managers. They're not field agents anymore. They're managers. They manage people once they reach that level. They, they protect their people from the politicians. Honestly, that's their job, protect their people from the politicians and be that go-between and to answer for their people to the politicians. They're the rule setters. And they are, the buck stop here sign is above their doors, on their desk, and on the wall behind their chairs. But do they actually bring any expertise? Would he have brought any expertise to examining the field that he could not get from reports, photographs, and video in his office? Because face it, it takes time to get there. Then you got the time to getting from the area, from the airport to the area that it happened at. He's there for maybe 2 hours to get a firsthand look at everything. Then he has to go back to the airport, get back in his plane, helicopter, whatever, fly back to Washington, D.C. And he could have gotten the exact same information from the videos and the written reports and the photographs. So there's nothing that he couldn't have seen there that he couldn't see from his office. And with modern technology, he could have seen much of it live. So, Rami, you're right. Spanky is a good boy, and he's done nothing wrong. In fact, he's sitting back up on the couch with me right now. He's a good boy. I'm glad the wife's not home because I had to turn the heat on. So as you can see here, guys, I'm not bashing. I'm taking this guy Fallon here to task right now as much as I am Rowe. So
For 5 days as an active crime scene, and they released it back to the owners on the 18th, and you did not visit. And when did you finally visit the site?
I visited about a day after I was appointed.
So July 24th? Cheadle came in July 22nd. She got skewered and roasted by the Democrats and Republicans on the Oversight Committee, of which I sit on. She resigned the next day, and then only that day did you go.
I'll take your word for it, Congressman.
Why'd you wait 9 days? 11 days?
Why did I wait 9 days?
Yeah. Director of the FBI went to the site. Why didn't you go?
Congressman, I think I was appointed July 23rd, and I was there on the 24th or 25th.
But you were the second most senior member of the Secret Service. You could have gone.
And I was managing from here the crisis. We actually
so you didn't go.
dispatched.
Got it. Did you call the?
and that's exactly what I'm saying. The man was managing the crisis at his office in Washington, D.C. He can still get all the information from videos, photographs, telephone information, telephonic communications. He didn't need to waste 2 days worth of travel or a full day's worth of travel to go out there for a 2-hour visitation. Now, is that, as we all know, presidents don't need to fly over a hurricane zone to evaluate the damage, but they do because it makes good photo shots. GW flying over New Orleans, surveying the damage. Trump, and not taking anything away from Trump here, because Trump shows up and he shows up with a bunch of stuff. He shows up with toiletries. He shows up with canned goods. He shows up with clothing and all kinds of good stuff when he shows up at a hurricane site, at a disaster site. So he's not just showing up for the photo shoot and then heading off. He's showing up and bringing in supplies. And that's, but he's still, a lot of that is PR, public relations. Oh, no. Now, see, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right about that 100%. And Cheatham or Cheadle, whatever the hell her name was, and Rowe, they should have been trying to find out why there was no communication, or the piss poor communication that there was. They should have been reading riot acts and getting that straightened out. And Neil, and that's not Rowe's fault. That wasn't the director's fault. That was the fault of the senior person put there on site. Now, whose fault was it that that person was put there? That particular individual was put there? What was their background, and how did they get to such a position that somebody thought that they could be trusted to be in charge of something like that? That's a whole different story. But the fact that they didn't have any kind of briefings or communications set up with the local police and anybody else that was there working, that is the direct fault of the individuals that were there setting up. And I'm not going to argue with that either, Neil. I'm not going to argue with that either. I'm just saying here, though, that, but anyhow, let's get on with this, because we hadn't gotten to the part that this is about.
You were managing the crisis, you just said. Did you call the detail that night on July 13th that was protecting President Trump?
On that night, they were operational, sir.
You did not. Okay. Did
I
you
did
call him
not.
the next day?
No, I did not.
Okay. When did you finally talk to him?
I spoke to them when they arrived in Milwaukee.
So 4 days later, July 17th. Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you waited 4 days, and when we were
Now, Rowe here, he has not impressed me because he's got no facts. He's got no timeline there in front of him. He should have known when he walked in this meeting, he was going to be asked about dates and times, where he was, what was going on, specific date and times. And he should have had all that in his notes right there in front of him. It appears he did zero prep work for this hearing.
were talking earlier, a couple months ago, this is an epic failure. We all agree on that. And instead of really focusing on the egregious errors and correcting the incompetence and improving the doctrine and changing the culture, there was a massive appropriations request. We know that you have 8,000 employees. We know that they have a $3.1 billion budget, and you asked for $2 billion additional dollars. What sticks in our craw is when we report to our constituents, we have to say, hey, this federal agency failed epically, and then they wanted to almost double their budget. How much would it have cost to put somebody on that water tower? How much would it have cost to have drones that were actually functioning that day? How much would it have taken to where your anti-drone technology would work? How much would it have costed in a walkthrough with local law enforcement to secure the AGR site, or put cameras on that roof, or put agents on that roof, or have your snipers have iPads, or have one command post instead of two, or cordon off the damn AGR complex, 17 acres? That wouldn't have cost $2 billion. And in fact, with caution tape signs, posts, and stakes, it would have run about $410 because we ran through it. Let's add another zero. Say it's $4,000. It's not $2 billion. So I got another question for you. Do you recognize this photo?
Okay, now this is why I pulled this video up. We're coming to this section now, okay? But I wanted you to have a flavor, a taste of what this back and forth between these two guys had been. Okay? Because the media, they portrayed this as Fallon. Well, we'll just let it go here.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Was that the remembrance of September 11th?
It was.
Was it in New York?
It was at Ground Zero.
Okay.
Okay. This is Rowe right here. Remember, he is now the acting director of the Secret Service, and this is him standing right here.
Who is usually at an event like this closest to the President of the United States, security-wise?
If you are a husband and wants your wife to fall passionately in love with you again, then this will be the most important video you will.
The sack of the detail.
Special agent in charge of the detail. Were you the special agent in charge of the detail that day?
Actually, let me address this. Could you please, staff, leave?
All right. He asked a very simple question. Were you the sack of the detail? Because the sack of the detail is supposed to be the person closest to the president. Or in this case, should have been closest to Trump.
Oh, no, leave
No,
that
we're-
one up with
we're
the
putting it
circle
up.
around me. Thank you. So actually, Congressman, what you're not seeing is the sack of the detail out of the picture's view. And that is the day where we remember.
All right. And now he goes off on a complete tangent. He has his feelings hurt. And he is going to let everybody, and the media allowed him, portrayed him as the innocent victim in this whole thing. When he was asked a very simple question, were you the sack of the detail? Because you were the closest Secret Service agent to the president, to Trump at this point.
Remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11. I actually responded to Ground Zero.
I don't care that you responded to Ground Zero. Congratulations, you responded to Ground Zero.
They are going through the ashes of the World Trade Center. I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you if you were the special agent in charge?
To show respect
You were not.
for a Secret
That's
Service
a bunch of
member
horse hockey.
that died on 9/11.
You see how this guy just blew this whole thing up, playing the victim. Now, Fallon didn't do himself no favors here, losing his temper the way he did. But Rowe, see, right there's Biden. Right there's Rowe. There's Schumer. There's Kamala. Trump and J.D. Vance. The sack of the detail is at least 4 bodies over from the president. That's the point that Fallon's trying to make. That Rowe inserted himself here so that when they had his picture, when they took this picture, he could be in a photograph close to Trump, close to Kamala, close to Biden, Kamala, within distance of Trump and JD, next to Schumer. He's right there with the power grab. But he wasn't the sack of the detail. Sack of the detail is not even in the photograph.
Special agent in charge.
To show respect
You were not.
for a Secret
That's
Service
a bunch of
member
horse hockey.
that died on 9/11.
Oh, that you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Oh, that not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
No, I'm not.
He's not invoking 9/11 for political purposes. He's not.
are out of
Gentlemen,
line.
I would
Gentlemen.
like to ask him a question, please.
You are
Order.
out of line,
Order.
Congressman.
Don't
Way
try
out
to
of
bully
line.
me. I
Order.
am an elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are
I
playing
am a public
politics.
servant who has served this nation and
You
spent
won't answer
time
the question.
on our day, on our country's
Mr.
darkest
Mr.
day.
Chairman,
Committee
he will
will
not
come
Do
answer
to
not
the
order.
politicize it.
Committee.
Anyway, now most of the media did not play in what the question was that led up. Hey, Toddy Ripskin, good morning. Exactly, Neil. That escalated so damn fast because that picture showed that the person that he was standing where the person in charge of the security detail, should have been standing. He didn't have a firearm with him. He didn't have a radio, any way of communications with him. He had nothing. He was standing there in a bare uniform or bare suit. Rowe got called out by Fallon here. And the media pushed it to make Rowe here seem to be the victim of Fallon. And that's the point I was wanting to make here. By showing from start to this point, the entire questioning process. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he was naked as a jaybird. He had no communication devices with him. He didn't even have his firearm with him. Now, why would the acting director of the Secret Service not have their firearm with them? I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody when it comes, okay? I'm sitting here on my living room couch, and I've got my Glock 4th generation 9mm sitting here next to me. Other than very few appointments, if I walk out of my house and get in my truck, I've got my Glock in a holster on my hip. I don't go, anywhere I'm legally allowed to carry, I carry. I've got a couple of doctors that have requested I don't carry inside their offices, and yes, sir, that's no problem. Because I want to keep my doctors. I don't want to make them mad at me. Yeah, always assume I'm always armed for your safety. Exactly. So the media here really did a number on this. Like I said, I saw a few that played Fallon's question. I think Fox carried it. When Fox did it, they actually showed Fallon asking his question. But CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, every report I saw on them, none of them showed the question being asked. So they let it go, given the appearance that Fallon was denigrating 9/11 or using 9/11 for political purposes, which we know isn't what was going on. So, all right, what we got here? Okay, I'm done with this one here, unless do you guys want to actually listen to the last 3 minutes of his ranting and raving? Because I really don't. I mean, we saw how fast that escalated. I really don't need to hear any more of his rants and raves. So I'll stop that there. I'll go ahead and post the link to this so that anybody who wants to, whoops, what did I? Oh man, no. There we go. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay. There we go. That's what I wanted. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close that tab. Now, just heads up. There's going to, chances are good that this video will not be available on YouTube after today. So if anybody wants us to watch it, it'll be up on Rumble about an hour or so after I'm done with the stream. Okay, just fair warning. Because, well, it's like my video, my stream where I tore apart the View last week. You can only find it on Rumble. NBC may be doing this to me on this stream. So I don't have any strikes right now. So if I can handle having a strike if I get one. But we're going to go over this interview that Trump had with NBC's Meet the Press. What the hell did I just do? Okay, I didn't do anything too ugly. All right, get that up there. Make sure I got the volume up. There's one particular question, and I'm not certain exactly where it's at. I think it's in the first 20 minutes or so, but one particular question I'm really going to be tearing them apart on. But let's go ahead and start this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. You are the first president since Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive terms. Republicans now have control of the House and the Senate.
Right.
What do you plan to accomplish in your first 100 days in office?
Well, we're going to do something with the border, and very strong, very powerful. That'll be our first signal, and the first signal to America that we're not playing games. We have people coming in by the millions, as you know, and a lot of people shouldn't be here. Most of them shouldn't be here, but we have jails being emptied into our country. We have mental institutions from all over the world being emptied into our country. So we'll be doing that. We're going to be extending within that period, or as soon as we can, the Trump tax cuts, because, you know, they're coming due and they're very substantial for people. And it would be very, I think it will anger a lot of people, frankly, if we don't get an extension of that. That's what led us to one of the greatest economies ever. And those two things are going to be very vital, very important. We're going to be focusing on crime in the cities, and we'll work with Democrat governors. Most of them are, as you know, if you look at the 25 worst places, they're just about all Democrat-controlled cities and states. And we're going to be working with Democrat governors and Democrat mayors. And I look forward to doing it, but we have to do something about crime, and mostly in our cities. And we're going to have a lot of other things. We'll be working on nominations. We're going to still be working on some nominations. I think they're going very well. We have, for the most part, I think they're going extremely well. It looks like Peter's doing well now. I mean, people were a little bit concerned. He's a young guy with a tremendous track record, actually. He went to Princeton and went to Harvard. He was a good student at both, but he loves the military, and I think people are starting to see it. So we'll be working on his nomination along with a lot of others.
Now, see, Trump made a mistake there. He's talking about Pete Hegseth. He made a mistake in not bringing up the fact that he is combat 2 Bronze Stars. That he has been boots on the ground. And, bringing up his college education is fine. That helps get rid of the he's a dummy. But to people like me and to people like you guys, it's the fact that he has spent time in the military that matters. He's not just an armchair warrior. He's been there, done that, got the T-shirt. And Trump missed a golden opportunity to bring that up.
We are going to delve into your nominations, but since you bring him up, do you still have confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Yes, I do. I really do. He's a very smart guy. I've known him through Fox, but I've known him for a long time. And he's basically a military guy. I mean, every time I talk to him, all he wants to talk about is the military. He's a military guy. I used to kid him about it. I didn't think would be in this position where he may be, hopefully will be Secretary of Defense. But every time I was with him, he was fighting for soldiers, where he said some soldier was unjustly put in prison because they were really doing what they were taught to do in some cases. So, yeah, I think he's going to.
The average person sees around 10,000 online ads daily. Here's how a man's life would change if he
do fine.
The fact that there are these allegations against him, misconduct, sexual misconduct, heavy drinking, the fact that he said to some senators reportedly
all of us being in the military and had 99% of us in the military have a history of heavy drinking. That's just a given. Hell. Now, again, in 1978 and 1979, legal drinking age was 18 years old. We'd get off work on Friday, and we would have roll call at the park or some other designated place where we would sit there and break out the coolers that had been sitting in the shop all day with the beer in them or a keg in them and have our alcohol. And it was, while it was not mandatory that you showed up for that, most people did show up, at least had a small beer, then left. Or I've got plans with the wife for the weekend, and I've got to get home, get the cars packed to get out so we can get out to the desert, or we're going down to Mexico for the weekend. I was in Arizona at the time. We're heading down to Mexico for the weekend. We're going up to the canyon. We're going up to Four Corners. So, we got to get out of here. And, they'd make their excuses beforehand and head home. Now, there was a few people that we knew just weren't going to show up. And honestly, we were glad they didn't show. But alcohol has always been part of the military. It may not be today as wimpified as things seem to have gotten today compared to when I was in. But it sure was back in the day. Back in the day.
Stop drinking if he gets this job.
Yeah.
Does that worry you?
No, I think that everybody has something that they can stop. Some people can stop eating. I'm lucky I'm not a drinker, but I could stop eating. And we all want to stop doing something. And if he said that, I mean, it's a nice thing to say. That's a good thing to say. But he's very respected. I can tell you, I know a lot of the people at Fox, they think he's fantastic. And the people that work with him, really, they love him. So I think you're going to have somebody that's really terrific. And again, all he talked about with me, I said, you know, you're not really a television guy, even though he did very well, as you know. You're really a military guy. He said, I'm all about the military. And I told him, so he's making a lot of money at Fox. They're doing very well. And I said, you know, if for some reason you don't get this thing, you're not going to be able to go back. And all that money you're making, you can kiss it goodbye. He said, this is all about America. You know, he didn't say, well, let me think about it. Let me discuss it. That's a very big risky thing he's doing when he goes and he says, I'm going to give up, you know, millions of dollars in order to possibly become the Secretary of Defense. A lot of people would say it's a great position. It's probably almost no greater position, but a lot of people would say, I have to think about it. He said, I don't have to think about it.
All right, we're going to delve into
sure.
your cabinet
Sure.
picks a little bit later, but I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States. Three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe.
Okay, and what these people are saying here about consumers paying the price of tariffs. Of course, you know, Walmart pays. You know, there's a tariff on avocados out of Mexico. Right now, you can buy an avocado, let's say, for $1. Well, if there's a 25% tariff on avocados coming out of Mexico, going to cost $1.25. Oh no, that was my cat. Okay, I just heard a cat screaming, and I didn't see my cat hides into the couch. He's the same color as the couch. I didn't see him sitting over there on the other couch. But anyway. But the problem with what that doesn't take into mind though, is that will take avocados grown in the United States and make them cheaper. So the companies start buying avocados from the United States. Farmers start growing more avocados. So Americans are benefiting instead of Mexicans benefiting from avocados being bought and paid for and sold here in the United States. When a few years ago, look at the Japanese, when the steel, we lost our steel market in Pennsylvania. I mean, Pennsylvania steel was infamous for the steel mills. And then we started buying Japanese-made steel. Well, steel mills in the United States started going out of business because the Japanese were dumping their steel on U.S. markets and undercutting the U.S. prices so badly that U.S. steel couldn't sell. So they put the tariffs on it. Well, then that made U.S. Steel more productive. And I'm not saying U.S. Steel the company, but U.S. Steel in general. Now, does it take a little bit for this to happen? Yes, it does. The market doesn't happen overnight. But in the long term, tariffs, when you're boosting your own economy, work.
Can you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow, but I can.
I love that. You know, she's coming out and will you guarantee, hoping to get it, you know, that he's going to be stupid enough to fall in that same trap that Biden laid for himself about promising not to pardon Hunter. And he didn't fall for that trap. I can't even guarantee tomorrow. All right, good move.
Say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation. In fact, when I handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half. They went almost 2 years just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let it become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. And all I want to do is I want to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
Sir, your previous tariffs during your first administration cost Americans some $80 billion. And now you have major companies from Walmart, Black & Decker, AutoZone saying that any tariffs are going to force them to drive up prices for their consumers. How do you make sure that these CEOs, that these companies don't, in fact, pass on the cost of tariffs to their consumers?
Yeah, you notice here what she's saying is are you going to strong arm? Are you looking at making the federal government take over these companies and strong arm them? Remember, they're wanting to cap grocery prices. Remember, that was one of Kamala's promises, that she was going to go in and cap grocery prices. That's communism. When you go in and control how much companies charge for their product. And that's what she's suggesting here. That Trump become a dictator, and she's asking Trump if he's going to become a dictator to control the prices.
Cost Americans nothing. They made a great economy for us. They also solve another problem. If we were going to have problems having to do with wars and having to do with other things, tariffs, I have stopped wars with tariffs by saying, you guys want to fight, it's great, but both of you are going to pay tariffs to the United States at 100%. And they have many purposes, tariffs, if properly used. I don't say you use them like a madman. I say properly used. But it didn't cost this country anything. It made this country money. And we never really got the chance to go all out because we had to fight COVID in the last part. And we did it very successfully. And when I handed it over to Biden, the stock market was higher than what it was just previous to COVID coming in. It was actually higher. Tariffs are a properly used, are a very powerful tool, not only economically, but also for getting other things outside of economics.
Well, again, prices did go up on some goods in your first administration.
Prices go up on some goods all the time. And remember, when you raise minimum wage, prices on the goods that are being manufactured or supplied by those companies that had to raise their minimum wages, their prices went up because the companies still have to turn a profit.
Washing machines, tires. Will you punish CEOs?
Let me just explain to you. No.
And she's still on there. Will you punish CEOs? It's not the government's job to punish CEOs.
You mentioned washing machines. So you look at Whirlpool in Ohio. I got a call from Jim Jordan, one of the greats, congressman from Ohio. And he said, they're going out of business because South Korea and China are dumping washing machines into our country. And I put a 50% tariff on the washing machines coming in from China and South Korea. And Whirlpool and the companies that made washing machines, which are based in Ohio, largely based in Ohio, went through the roof. We saved thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. They were all going out of business because they were dumping washing machines. And when I put the tariffs on, they became successful businesses. No, it didn't. Not only didn't it cost people, it made our country stronger and more powerful, and it kept jobs.
But how do you make sure?
Watch why Japanese people eat white rice.
Rice is pure glucose in starch form. It is one of the
that consumers don't wind up paying more. Will you punish CEOs who try to pass the cost of tariffs on to their customers?
Well, the market.
What? This is like the fifth time that she's asked him if he's going to punish CEOs. What is this with this woman and wanting to have the federal government punish CEOs and companies?
It's going to take care of it. I mean, actually, the market takes care of it. And if it doesn't, we adjust it somewhat. But in the case of Whirlpool, or let's say companies that made washing machines, they were all being put out of business by the dumping from, in particular, South Korea and China. And when I put the tariffs on, very substantial tariffs, although peanuts compared to what people do to us, what countries do to us, it became a very, very powerful, successful company. Now, let's say I didn't do the tariffs. It would have gone out of business. You would have lost tens of thousands of jobs. And you don't include that in your equation. No, they make a lot of money. I'll go a step further. Tariffs are going to make our country rich. Tariffs are going to help us pay off $35 trillion in debt. Tariffs are going to make our country safe because China, as an example, doesn't want to play games with us if we're going to do tariffs on them. They don't want to play games. And we have a lot of games being played on us right now.
Well, I think, and that takes me to my next question. Yeah. Are you actually going to impose these tariffs, or are they a negotiating tactic?
Well, I'll give.
Okay, Neil, yes, our cat is gray. And we've got gray couches. So, and other than where he's starting to turn white from age, down along the base of his paws and a couple of spots around his face, he's solid gray cat. If I took a picture of my couch right now, you'd be hard telling to spot him on that couch. Now, I don't know, and this is something me. This is a me thing here. Her eyes. Why are her eyes so wide open, like she's, you know, I'm going to get you, you know, I'm, you know, I mean, her eyes are, is that natural for her eyes to be that wide open? I'm just not used to seeing somebody's eyes that wide open without there being something there, some reason why her eyes would be that wide open.
Give you an example. With Canada, and in particular Mexico, we have millions of people pouring into our country. You agree with that? I spoke with both. I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended. It was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders because they're coming in the northern border too a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%. That's a very substantial tariff. And in the case of, in both cases, but in the case where it was really visible, within 10 minutes after that phone call, we noticed that the people coming across the border, the southern border, having to do with Mexico, they were at a trickle, just a trickle. It was, in fact, I call the border. See, unlike my opponent, I do call the border a lot. And I said, how's the border looking today? They said, there's nobody here. They couldn't believe it. The military stopped these vast groups of people. You know, we call them caravans, but they had caravans of people, and they largely stopped them. Now, they're going to have to continue that. But if they don't continue, and the other thing I told them is no more drugs. And I told that to China, too. I had to deal with President Xi. Had the election been different, I'm going to be very nice because we don't have to get into an argument over 2020. But had the election been different, the result been different, we would have had China giving the maximum penalty, which is the penalty of death, to people that sent fentanyl into this country. But Biden didn't, unfortunately, finish that discussion up. I had an agreement with President Xi, who I got along with very well. We've had communication as recently as this week. And I had communication with him where they were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending drugs into the United States.
This week you had that conversation.
Not that conversation, but I had other conversations. But in the past,
I tell you, that would not break my heart whatsoever. Anybody importing. Okay, now your AOC eyes, yep. That's the face of somebody trying to convince you they're BS. Yeah, that could be too. But I mean, her eyes are just, that's crazy. Yeah, I did speed this up to 1.25. Just trying to get through it all.
I've had that conversation.
Let me ask you about another aspect of the economy, sir, the minimum wage. The federal minimum wage has been $7.25 since 2009.
Okay, and states and local cities are more than able to raise their minimum wages. They do it all the time. Florida just raised theirs again to $12 an hour. So there's no need for the federal government to be setting minimum wage.
There are 20 states that still have the federal minimum wage at $7.25. And I actually have a map. 19 of these states actually voted for you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it right here. I don't know if you remember this, but during the debate in 2020, I asked you if you would raise the minimum wage. You said you would consider it. And so my question for you is, now that you are going back to the White House, for these 19 states that voted for you, are you going to raise the federal minimum wage?
He can't raise the federal minimum wage. That has to go through Congress. If Congress now you can ask him if Congress would send you a bill, would you raise minimum wage? But he can't just wave his wand and, minimum wage erectus and raise the minimum wage. He can't do that. That's not within his power. And why didn't Biden do what he could do? Biden and Kamala for the past 4 years raised the minimum wage. I'm sorry, I don't remember a minimum wage being brought up when Biden and Kamala were in office. Do y'all remember it? Especially when the Democrats had control of the House and Senate. I don't remember them bringing it up.
Number, I will agree. It's a very low number. Let me give you the downside, though. Yeah. In California, they raised it up to a very high number. And your restaurants are going out of business all over the place. The population is shrinking. it's had a very negative impact. But there is a level at which you can do it. Absolutely. Yeah.
What is that level?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I can say this. You have a lot of businesses that are open and thriving because of the lower minimum wage. If you raise it too much, and you understand this, if California went crazy, they went crazy. And people, the restaurants are closing all of them. Many more people are hurt.
So I hear you saying, similarly to sort of what you said in 2020, will you consider, is this something you're going to look at?
I'd want to speak to the governors. And the other thing that's very complicated about minimum wages is places are so different. Mississippi and Alabama and great places are very different than New York or California. I mean, in terms of the cost of living and other things. So it would be nice to have just a minimum wage for the whole country, but it wouldn't work because you have places where it's very inexpensive to live, where a minimum wage, which is $8 or $9, might be, might have very little effect because the cost of living in certain places is really low.
Before we move on to immigration, which I do want to talk about, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said he will not leave his post even if you ask him to. Will you try to replace Jerome Powell?
No, I don't think so. I don't see it. But I think if I told him to, he would. But if I asked him to, he probably wouldn't. But if I told him to, he would.
You don't have plans to do that right now?
No, I don't.
What is the best way to lose this central obesity? Some people call it belly fat.
I'm going to drink lime and ginger.
Okay, let's talk about mass deportation, one of your big agenda items. You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next?
It should be. And I'll tell you, in my personal opinion, it should be, every person in the country illegally. If you did, I don't care if you've been here for 40 years. If you're in the country illegally, you should be gone. All right. Again, all right. If I could control Congress and the presidency for one day, illegals would not get free medical. They would not get housing. They would not get food, welfare, EBT, anything like that. And all companies would be required to use the E-Verify. That's the program where they have to verify the Social Security number that's being provided by the employee, the potential employee. And then finally, any company caught hiring illegals, first offense, $1,000 per day per illegal. Second offense, $2,000. Third offense, $3,000 per day per illegal that company has hired. Plus, they would lose government contracts, all government contracts. First offense for 1 year, second offense for 2 years, third offense for 3 years, so on and so forth. And that $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, that would be per illegal. You got 15 illegals working for you. All right, and you got caught. That's $15,000, $30,000, $45,000 fines. That would add up, and companies would quit hiring illegals to do the job. And I don't care how big or small of a company you are. And if every person you have working for you is illegal and it puts you out of business, oh well. I've got no sympathy for you. And yes, the owners of the business, the CEOs of the business would face prison time. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year prison terms. I've got no problem with that. And see, that would cause a lot of illegals to self-deport. If they can't get free food, if they can't get housing, if they can't get free medical, they would self-deport. Because what are they going to do? Especially northern tier bases, northern tier states. They'd be out freezing their butts off, cold, wet, and hungry. Again, Not a problem that I would give a damn about.
What kind of car do you drive?
A 2022 Tesla Model Y. Why?
If you don't mind me asking, what do you pay for car insurance?
What the hell did I do?
President-elect Donald Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you very much. If who murdered more than one person, you don't want those people in this country.
But you're saying back to the White House for these 19 states.
Because the cost of living in certain places is really low. Doing it with impunity, they don't care. They couldn't. They just are. They're in the real estate business.
You know, the local police say that is not the case in Colorado.
Oh, it's totally the case. I mean, I have it
you
on
don't
tape.
believe the local police.
I play it. I used to play it at my rallies every single night. No, they're breaking into doors. They're taking over the building.
But sir, you
and by the
raised
way,
the point.
The police are afraid to do anything.
You raised the point that the logistics are complicated. You said
Sure they
yourself
are,
you would
but
need
everything's
24.
complicated.
Yeah, you mean you need 24 times more ICE detention capacity just to deport 1 million people per year. Not to mention more agents, more judges, more planes. Is it realistic to deport everyone who's
You have
here
no choice.
illegally?
First of all, they're costing us a fortune. But we're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others, and we're going to see how it goes.
Who are the others?
Others are other people outside of criminals. We have convicted murderers. We don't mean people that are even on trial. We have people that have murdered numerous people are on our streets and in our farms, and we have to get them out of our country.
What about dreamers, sir? Dreamers who were brought to this country illegally as children. You said once back in 2017, they, quote, shouldn't be very worried about being deported. Should they be worried now?
The dreamers are going to come later, and we have to do something about the dreamers because these are people that have been brought here at a very young age, and many of these are middle-aged people now. They don't even speak the language of their country. And yes, we're going to do something about the
What does
dreamers.
that mean?
And
What are you going to do?
I will work with the Democrats on a plan, and if we can come up with a plan, but the Democrats have made it very, very difficult to do anything. Republicans are very open to the dreamers. The dreamers, we're talking many years ago, they were brought into this country, many years ago. Some of them are no longer young people. And in many cases, they become successful. They have great jobs. In some cases, they have small businesses. In some cases, they might have.
And the dreamer problem is a problem that was created by Obama. And the the Republicans in Congress were too weak-kneed, afraid of being called racist and xenophobes and all these other names by the media to fight him on it. Obama had said, I believe it was 20 or 25 times, that he did not have the authority to do what he did when he created Dreamers, DACA. Then all of a sudden, his last year or so in, he found the authority to do it. And the weak-kneed Republicans in Congress did not file a lawsuit against him. And when Trump tried to change the executive order on it, the Democrats had no problem taking him to court over it. So the DACA people, the DACA illegals, that's a problem of the Republican making, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, it was Obama who did it. But the Republicans should have fought it. Just like the Democrats fought Trump with his executive orders.
Large businesses, and we're going to have to do something with them. And
you want them to be able to stay. That's what you're saying.
I do. I want to be able to work something out. And it should have been able to be worked out over the last 3 or 4 years. And it never got worked out. Biden could have done it because he controlled, Congress to a certain extent, right? He could have done something, but they didn't do it. I never understood why, because they always seem to want to do it. But then when it comes down to it, they don't. I think we can work with the Democrats and work something out.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are
You're talking about separation.
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your borders are, Tom Homan said, they can be deported to.
All right, she's making the 14th Amendment argument here. And the 14th Amendment argument that they're making and that the courts have used in the past should have been overturned a long time ago. Because the 14th Amendment does not say what they think it says, and the way the courts have been And if you go back and read the arguments at the time that the 14th Amendment was written, before when it was presented to Congress and before when it was voted on in Congress and then brought out to the states to be voted on. If you were the children of illegals, if your parents, it was not meant to give the children of illegals citizenship. Anchor babies was not a thing that was supposed to be happening. But the weak-ass Democrat courts and the Democrats fought it, and, well, we got what we got now.
Together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep well, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal and they show the woman, and she could stay by the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country, and then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job, and you have to have a series of standards and a series of laws. And in the end, look, our country is a mess. We have the highest crime rate, and during the debate, a man whose ratings have gone way down, David Muir, said to me, no, crime is, because I had to debate 3 people, not 1. Debating 1 was easy. Debating 3 was actually pretty easy, too, if you want to know the truth. But David Muir said, the crime rates have gone down. I said, no, they've gone up. And then the following day, they released the crime rates, and they were way up.
Yeah, the FBI statistics, right? You're talking about those FBI statistics.
Well, no, but he gave the wrong answer.
Confusing based on what you're looking at.
But a lot of.
And remember, if you're here, if they are in the country illegally, they are criminals. They broke the law. That is why they are called illegals. Now, granted, the media and the Democrats are trying to change, they're just referring to them as migrants. Trying to lump them in with the migrants who come to the country legally. Trying to make it all one umbrella term, anybody who entered the country, whether legally or illegally. And we can't allow them to control the language that way. They're not migrants, they're illegals. And it's that simple. They entered the country illegally. We can't allow them to control the language that way.
A lot of that is migrant crime.
Let me ask you about another aspect
Christian,
of this.
a lot of it's migrant crime.
Well, let me ask you about another aspect of this that I think a lot of people are really curious about. I mean, 3% of the people who are here illegally have criminal histories. But in your first administration, you had the zero tolerance policy, where we did see family separation. Yeah. You ended it. The purpose of
family separation, when there, as Tom Holman said, God bless him, when an American citizen, an Anglo-American citizen whose family's been here for 5 generations, is arrested for domestic violence, is arrested for DUI, is arrested for any crime, he's separated from his family. He or she is separated from their family. They go to jail. They are punished. They are separated from their families. Same way when you enter the country illegally. And it's just to show how weak we've been on enforcing the immigration laws, that the illegals have been here long enough to get married and have children. And then, oh my God, you're breaking up a family. And my answer is, so what? He committed a crime. Well, their children are citizens. And I've got a question for you on this. Okay? Citizenship, that's something that people want. They want to become an American citizen. Do we allow somebody who has robbed a bank or a grocery store, and they gave that whatever money they stole, $500 to $1 million, and they gave it to their children? Do we allow the children to keep that money? or do we take it back? Give it back to their owners. They stole a necklace out of your dresser. They stole a ring out of your jewelry box. They stole the watch off of your wrist. And they gave it to their child. Do we let their child keep that jewelry, that watch? No, we take it back and give it back to its rightful owner. Same way with U.S. citizenship. They stole that citizenship for their child. They stole it. Take it back. Don't let them have that U.S. citizenship.
That, though, to some extent, you
And
talked
by the
about
way,
this at
you
the
had
time, was
it. You
deterrent.
also had it with Obama. You do know that.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
And you also know he built the jails for children.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
But in 2014, he built the jails. You know that.
I want to ask you about the zero tolerance policy. He didn't have a systemic, we're going to separate families. Families were separated when parents were a threat to the kids.
We don't have to separate a family.
This.
Excuse me, Kristen.
Yeah.
We don't have to separate families. We'll send the whole family very humanely back to the country where they came. That way the family's not separated.
So no more family separations. You're not
Well,
reviving
it
the
depends
zero
on the
tolerance
family. The
policy.
family may decide to say, I'd rather have dad go, and we'll stay here. And in which case they have that option.
But you're not going to revive your zero tolerance policy, which was put in place as a deterrent. Is there any universe where you would bring that back, sir?
We need deterrence. Look, ready? When somebody comes here illegally, they're going out. It's very simple. When they come here illegally, they're going out. Now, if they come here illegally, but their family is here legally, then the family has a choice. The person that came in illegally can go out, or they can all go out together.
So,
and that was made very clear by Tom Homan.
So you're not, at this point in time, planning to revive that zero tolerance policy where kids are
Well, if you call that,
separated.
yeah, I'm doing what I just told you I'm going to do. You know, I don't want to send the family out. I don't want to send anybody out. But I'll tell you, we have to, because otherwise we have no country. If we don't have borders, and if we don't have voting, good voting, fair voting, do you know they're still counting votes in San Diego, California? Listen, they're still counting the votes. This is almost 4 weeks. They're still counting the votes. If we don't have fair elections and honest voting and machines that work quickly, you know, if you had paper ballots, every election will be over by 10 o'clock in the evening.
So let me ask you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Let me, before we get
and
to.
you get a much more accurate count.
Before we get to all of that, let me ask you about some of your other promises on this topic. You promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment.
He can't end birthright citizenship, unfortunately. He can't end it on a wave of his hand. God, I wish he could, but he can't. It's going to have to go through the courts. I'm sad to say. Oh, Daniel Penny just got wait a second here. I just got to alert Daniel Penny not guilty. The jury just found him not guilty. Wonderful. This is good news. The jury in Daniel Penny's case have come to a unanimous verdict on Monday for his criminal negligent homicide stemming from the 23rd, has been acquitted in the death. Yes. Oh, you know. Oh, look out for the riots, because Black Lives Matter people and such are promising riots. Look out for the riots in New York now. Look out for the riots. Hey, Whitney, good morning. As Trump supporters, Democrats find disgusting and shameful. Hey, Retro, good morning. I tell you, that is good news, Retro. I am so glad to see that Penny was found not guilty. We've all been arguing over that. But I could not see how Bragg brought him up on charges to start with. Talk about another lawfare case. But anyway. That is not what the 14th Amendment says. Let's back this up. All right. And I just have to be ready for that. Here is the 14th Amendment, Section 1, which is what she's partially quoting. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Okay, that is what she is misquoting. She left out and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. People who enter the country, first of all, people with diplomatic immunity, their children, no matter where they're born in the United States, ambassadors and such, their children aren't United States citizens because they are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The children of illegals, the argument can be made, are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The argument can be made for that. Because they entered the country illegally, not legally. When the parents enter the country illegally, their children are born in the country illegally. Okay, so she's misquoting the Constitution there. Yeah, Retro, sometimes justice does prevail. Bragg is not having a good year on major cases. He's having his ass handed to him. Thank God.
On the 14th Amendment with an
Well, we're going to
executive
have to get a
action?
change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
You know,
you're
we're
gonna
the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need to, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive
You know,
action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it. It's ridiculous. Do you know we're the only country in the world that has it? Do you know that? There's
Well,
not one other country.
what about the legal
You know,
challenge, inevitable
also-
legal
well, that's the other
challenges
thing.
that'll
Do you know
come?
we have thousands of judges? Somebody walks onto our land, and we have to now say, welcome to the United States. They could be a criminal or not a criminal. We release them into our country. It's called catch and release. We release them into our country. Wait, just 1 second. And now they get them lawyers. And the lawyers are good lawyers. And everybody has a lawyer. And you know how many judges we have? Thousands, thousands. Now, here's what other countries do. They come into the land and they say, I'm sorry, you have to go. And they take them out. Okay. With us, once they touch our land, we're into litigation that lasts for years, costs us hundreds of billions of dollars. We have judges, and I'm sure they're all honest, but I don't know that for a fact. You can imagine what's going on with the judges. But just so you, because I have a lot of judges, I tell you what, I know more about judges than any human being in history. Look, we have judges. Every time somebody puts 2 feet or even 1 foot on a piece of our land, it's welcome to long-term litigation. Other countries, every other country, when somebody walks on and they see that they're here illegally, they walk them off, they take them back to where they came from. We have to get rid of this system.
Which is as it should be. That is exactly the way it should be. Turn around, go home. Get the hell out of our country.
It's killing our country.
Let's talk about health care. I've been talking to Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill. They say it's no longer feasible to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's so entrenched in the system. Do you see it that way? Is that now?
All right, guys, I'm going to stop here for the day, and we'll pick this up with the health care on tomorrow's stream. Because could you imagine Kamala? This is 26 minutes. Could you imagine Kamala facing the questions here that Trump has faced? The questioning? She couldn't do it. She could not do that 22nd minute questioning like that without a half a dozen outtakes. But Trump is sitting here, no control over what's finally used by Kamala, demanded. So, all right. So I'm going to go to TikTok. Remember, we're on the countdown for TikTok. TikTok's got 10 more days before it may go bye-bye. TikTok's got 10 days to get their act together before it may go bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. 30 days before it may go bye-bye. January 19th. So they got 30 days to get something done to save their business here in the United States. Or else a lot of people are going to be upset. There's a couple of businesses that are, they do all their advertising on TikTok, and they do a vast majority of their sales on TikTok. And they don't know what they're going to do now in 30 days if TikTok goes bye-bye. So they're already wondering, how they're going to, redo their stuff. But anyway, I saw this the other day, and I just had to laugh. This was absolutely funny. We've all seen that was Peel that did the teacher, Aaron and such, trying to get the white student, pronouncing white students' names as some black would have their children named. Well, here's this, and parts of this are just absolutely hilarious. Make sure the volume's up on it. Yep.
I was doing some thinking, and there are regular words out there that could pass for black people names. For example, Dijon. Or what about anesthesia? It's pretty good, pretty good. Or if you got twins, you can name one tibia and the other one fibia. You could also use the word debris, but spelled debris. Yeah. Ooh, epiphany. Fire. Don't forget about my boy Purell. Now this one kind of works, but it also doesn't. Jaundice. That's a name. Oh, here's a fire one. Synchronicity. Ooh. It's all about the spelling too, because lasagna could be this right here. Lasagna. You could also have pneumonia, spelled pneumonia. Ooh, this one's fire. Jacuzzi. Fire name. Run it. Hey, have you guys seen my boy Cesarean? Oh, you over there? Okay. And these last two are fire. Teflon and felony.
Felony's the one that got me. Felony is the one that got me. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And thinking, yep, felony's committed a felony. And of course, that kind of humor goes well when it's the black man doing it. White guys would get the usual racist hatred accusations and such. All right, but yeah, great news on Daniel Penny being found not guilty. I'm expecting to see, let's see, is Black Lives Matter come up with, jury. Wait a minute, what's this? Okay, something is going goofy here because this is a CNN report. Jury Daniel Penny subway death trial deliberates lesser charge after deadlock. But this was only 8 minutes ago. No, I think CNN ran this back asswards. I think CNN did some stuff backwards there. Because everybody else is saying that he was not guilty on the manslaughter or on the other charges. Of the criminally negligent homicide. So no justice in this racist effing country. We'll have to see what the we'll have to say, see what kind of protests are going to be hitting the streets this afternoon and tonight. Because it could get very, very, very ugly. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you for coming out, listening to me here a little bit. If NBC strikes this, which I'm going to say they got a chance of doing, a 50-50 chance of striking this stream today, it'll be up on Rumble here in an hour. So anybody that wants to watch it on Rumble, Rumble didn't pull my my other stream, so I don't think this one will get pulled over there. All right. So y'all all have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. And as always, be with the ones you love and love the ones that you're with. And have a good day.